What is a scam that has been normalized by society? Subscription-based services, paying multiple times for the same thing sucks. Underrated scam to bring attention to. People love bending over for these companies. This has been said a million times, but college textbooks. I had a professor that would write his own 200 to 500 page textbook and give it to us free. We also used Discord and students would share textbooks or give us links to torrent sites to get the textbook. I never paid for a textbook for the last 2 years. Lucky guy. College textbooks are basically $100 pieces of paper that become obsolete next year. Yours is just that my university has found free money glitch, it issues you books from library for a whole semester, of course you have to pay for it in around 60 per textbook and then return it after end semester last exam on same date or you get fined 10 per day. You can buy textbooks and sell them to juniors for a little lower price when you are done with them, but the university has found a new way. It forces you to borrow the books from university library, you have no choice. And the best part, the textbooks aren't even used in lectures or have the accurate syllabus as they are generations older. Printer ink prices. Now the most expensive liquid on the planet. Cheaper to buy a new printer each time the ink runs out. Bastards. I switched to Epson ink printers at my store and never looked back. Ink comes in bottles, €1 per 10 milliliters, cheaper in bulk, and you simply fill the tanks with it. It's cheap as balls compared to brother horsepower cannon, and it seems to last forever. I used to buy 35 milliliters cassettes for my previous printers like 4 times a year. This ink has lasted me almost a year and a half on just 170 milliliters top off, and it still got over 30% left. Went from €200 annually to less than €25. Shop around for the ink, not for the printer. I had one. It stopped working because there is some counter that when it reaches some limit, marks the printer as broken. I had to download some weird software to reset these counters and the printer worked just fine. It also gave me a lot of problems because their original ink dried inside the printer and I had to make a deep clean before printing anything. Honestly, printers are the concentration of all possible scams into a single one. Yes, Epson printers have an ink pool deposit filled with some kind of foam. These ink pads get saturated over time, that's why there is a counter. But that can be fixed. Look for it on YouTube. The school picture industry. $80 for an awkward picture of my baby. Nah, thanks. I think this made more sense 25 plus years ago. Not everyone had a camera or took many photos with film. Picture day was special. Now with everyone having a high quality camera in their pocket it seems a bit silly. Right. Amazed there aren't more Wildcat style setups for picture day. Should be a quick deal with a digital copy, assembly style. Some schools likely make money off the deal. Even more wasteful are those amusement park rides where they actually print them out and bin them when not purchased. Some. Try all. They still try to get you to get school pictures when pretty much everyone has a phone these days. They try to get you to purchase those tacky Justin's class rings. They invite military recruiters. They have soda vending machines in the halls. They insist on you buying a yearbook. Here's a hint, they make money off each of these. End user agreements. Nearly all of them are unconscionable contracts that allow corporations to harvest user data via malware, even when you're not using the app. There is no accountability regarding user sale to other parties. The courts do nothing because they are terrified of the intelligence community. Well, that's fucking terrifying. I would honestly pay good money for a service that reads these contracts for me and tells me if I'm agreeing to be monitored by malware or anything else unconscionable like that. It's a standard EULA most of the time. Allows for arbitration but not necessarily lawsuits. They can collect your data and pass it on to third parties to help improve services. They may retain your data for X amount of time after canceling your contract or deleting your account. Etc. The trick isn't so much understanding that they're mining your data, but more what they're actually going to use it for. Facebook, Google, and Amazon are the most relevant to most folks. They sell your data between each other for targeted advertisements. The data is your browsing, searches, what you stop on or tap on, Facebook, what you're watching, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, etc. What you view or put in your cart, anything that sells or offers something, etc. At the end of the day, there's not a damn thing you can do about it. It's largely benign and arguably better. Your video and ad recommendations are based on your metadata that's passed between them. The part I have a problem with it is spying through my microphone on my phone. Shit is creepy and I don't appreciate it. Especially when I'm not even using the damn app. Source. I work in tech and actually read most contracts because I'm a nut job. If you want more info detail I can keep going on about the whole thing, but the gist of it is above. Textbook access codes that you can use only once. Is that a thing? What the hell? I'm old as balls. When I was in college we got our reading material printed and put in one folder and had to take turns wrestling through every page in the copier. When we have amazing technology that makes all information on Earth available with a click, people who charge for that should get fed through a printing press themselves. Yeah, I was also born before men walked on the moon. In my first year of college, a couple of the classes had textbooks written by the professor and self-published. The book was about 100 pages copied on a double-sided Xerox machine, with some thicker paper as covers, held together with some rivets. I think the book cost $15, that would be $46 today. Later, I switched schools, but textbooks were still relatively affordable. In my senior year, 1985-1986, I actually worked for a textbook publisher for a while, writing code that would allow teachers to generate individual tests for each chapter of a new book. I did an algebra book and later a calculus 1 book for them. I was using an Apple IIc notebook and the code was written in Pascal or BASIC, I don't really remember anymore. But even then, they were publishing new textbooks every 1-2 years, and let's face it, your basic algebra, calculus, physics, accounting, or other books don't need to be revised that often. Unless you're taking some seriously cutting-edge advanced math class, basic algebra and calculus haven't changed in the past 100 years. Students today could still use the calculus book that I studied from in 1984, I still have it, and learn everything they need to know. Yeah, the moment textbooks were digitized, the hellhole that is academia capitalized on it in the worst way possible. Not only do you have access codes that mean you'll only be able to access the textbook for that semester, many professors have interactive assignments that require you to pay up to $100 to use their specific code or else you won't get graded for it. Gone are the days where you can buy or rent a second-hand book for cheap or just pirate it altogether to save money. That's insane. Back in the day, the justification for the high cost of textbooks was high production costs. There was a lot wrong with that system, yet at least students got a well-made hardcover book out of it and knowing something about book publishing. Those short runs actually did have a high production cost for the publishers. Charging access codes for digital textbooks is highway robbery. Side note. Other than rare celebrity faculty who write bestsellers for the general public, your professors are getting screwed by the textbook publishing industry too. Most academics would earn more per hour flipping burgers than they make back for the work they put into writing a textbook. Yeah, they don't even try to justify it anymore. It's just like haha broke college student. Sucks to suck and we just have to deal with it. I did have a few professors that were on the other side of the spectrum that purposely taught off older versions of the textbook that they knew for a fact were available for free online. Per university policy, they're not allowed to give us the link or allow anyone to post it, so on the first day of lecture they said raise your hand if you found the textbook. If you haven't found it, ask someone with their hand raised for it. Some professors are taking that a step further with the open culture movement and writing textbooks on open license. After all, there's hardly a need to publish an entirely new edition of introductory calculus every year. It's not like that topic changes much. Funerals. When I'm dead, just throw me in the trash. I'm not even looking forward to mine. Megachurches. The owners of these churches make millions off their congregations but do very little to actually help them in their time of need. TBH, many regular churches are also scams. In the Bible there is a story about Jesus flipping his shit because people were being shady while selling shit on sacred grounds. But people conveniently forget that man started whipping the shit out of them, too. That's the energy I'm here for. He walked away to braid a whip to beat their asses. Dude was so angry he had to make something to properly express it. I just love the idea of Jesus angrily braiding a whip in a corner somewhere. Yep, whenever someone tells you WWJD, what would Jesus do, remember that flipping tables and beating the shit out of people is a valid option. As a Christian, I want to emphasize he only did those towards the religious elite. The people who used God for personal gain. I think people forget that. And against people that were actively cheating those who were trying to do the right thing and honoring God. I don't think God has any problem with a bake sale at church to raise money for an orphanage where they get 100% of the amount. I think he does have a problem if all of the funds raised go the pastor's pockets. It's sad, but your comment is so true. It's also true though that the vast majority of churches are run by people that are far from rich, and those churches do a lot of good for the poor and hurting people in their communities. It's just sad that there are charlatans in it for themselves that taint the perception of all the others. This story is concerned with the selling of temple sacrifice animals at excessive prices. In the Second Temple period, all Jewish men made a pilgrimage to Jerusalem to make an atonement sacrifice. Most of the meat after the sacrifice would be given to the temple priestly class. The story is useful in condemning greed, but it isn't a direct condemnation of the sale of goods on sacred ground either. Even Jesus himself later becomes the ultimate sacrifice on the cross. The narrative is more directly applied to not charging for access to communion. The later epistles and non-canonical Didache set up a basic communal funding model for the early churches. Ultimately someone has to pay to keep the roof up and the lights on. The story is much harder to articulate in the context of American Protestantism in light of prosperity doctrine. I agree that most are. Cough, cough, Joel Osteen. But we attend a so-called megachurch in central Tennessee's 6,800-strong congregation. I'm always skeptical, but our church does what they call a vision service twice a year. During this they present their financials. Last year they gave away more than 50% of what they took in to non-profit serving various good causes. And the average salary is $42K a year per employee. Salaries are only 1/3 of what they spend on. The rest goes for good. Really everything they do comes straight from the Bible, and no one is getting rich. So your point is well noted and one I generally agree with, but there are still good people out there who just want to create authentic followers of Jesus and want nothing back in return. Rent to own furniture and appliances. But I was thinking about doing that myself. To suck off the earnings and the life out of others less fortunate and then never actually letting them keep it because of some technicality. No, but for real though, they are complete piles of garbage. Did you know that rent-to-own house leasing was a thing? Your monthly rent doesn't even go towards the house. It's really shady. Health insurance. Pay hundreds of dollars into a pool of money. And the people holding the money will fight you tooth and nail to ensure you use as little of it as possible. Lol. You owe us money every month paycheck. You need health care? No, we're not paying, you gotta pay your deductible. You met your deductible? Okay, we'll pay for it, but only 80% to dissuade the poors from using it. You met your out-of-pocket max? Okay, we'll pay for it, and lol, you just paid tens of thousands anyway while being covered. Also, it's December so it resets next week. Car insurance too. It works the same way. Any insurance, really. Medical costs are also a scam. People are scamming insurance. Lawyers are scamming. The whole system. The US spends 17% of its budget on healthcare. Singapore spends 4% and gets better outcomes. We need to copy the Singapore system or go bankrupt. Sorta, but there's a big difference. Car insurance covers collisions and other damaging events. You don't involve car insurance to get an oil change or new tires or to fix broken air conditioning. In that way, you generally only use car insurance if there's a big unexpected event like a car crash. Health insurance should be similar, but it's not. We involve insurance to get a regular checkup, to replenish our maintenance medications, for people with ongoing prescriptions, to do everything that involves setting foot in the doctor office. In reality, we should be able to pay sticker price for the doctor's services, then if when something catastrophically bad happens, that's where insurance comes into play. It should be a much smaller part of our healthcare, and doing so in theory would enable providers to be more transparent and less bullshitty with their pricing. Currently insurance forces them to have the complex pricing they do have. Modern American health insurance is the rough equivalent of needing to involve your car insurance when you get your oil changed. Yup, and if you changed your car oil without insurance it would suddenly now cost $2,000. Why? Because the car dealership now needs to hire double the employees, so half of them can dedicate themselves entirely to dealing with insurance claims, and the costs of this overbloated system need to be paid by the customers somehow, or the whole thing falls down like a house of cards. Ticketmaster. Don't know why this isn't getting more love. They run their own secondary market. No incentive to stop scalpers, that's on top of all the bullshit fees etc. Being a workaholic. Being forced to work more than a workaholic, not being able to afford rent, and being called lazy as you slowly starve to death. Effing humans, I swear. At least workaholics sort of enjoy, on the surface anyway. Having to pay someone to prepare your taxes. The IRS already knows what you made and what you paid. Weddings. Spending so much for a single day is wasteful. Better to get married in a courthouse or something and invest the money. We could not bring ourselves to spend even $5K on our wedding. It is just such a waste of money for one day. We ended up going to the courthouse with our parents and siblings and invited them to dinner afterwards. €700 well spent and everybody was happy. And the insane physical and mental exhaustion for the families planning it and running around on the day of. I remember my cousin's weddings, absolute all hands on deck and panic. No one has fun. And yet they still won't see it for what it is. It's just become a convention no one wants to question or try to stop. Most importantly, it's an industry. I'm still waiting for that Nigerian prince to pay me the money he owes me. Should be arriving any day now. Did you pay him the $200 shipping fee and gift cards so he can have a package full of $3 million fly out to you? Paid the shipping, just didn't get a tracking number. Rookie mistake, I know.